Welcome into Mavericks Today. Harrison Graham and Jeffrey Cooperstein. Is Quentin Grimes the forgotten piece on this roster and perhaps the forgotten acquisition the Mavericks made this offseason? We're going to dive into that here on today's show. And Coop, kind of a little bio on one of the newest Mavericks here. When you look at Quentin Grimes, you got his size, his college, all that stuff. I think this is like a sneaky, underrated acquisition that, if you ask me, I think will be in this playoff rotation next year.
Yeah, I think he's going to be as well. When you consider like who the Mavericks' core guys are, Grimes isn't really in that, but I do think he has a chance to become that. He had some good seasons there with the Knicks, and after being traded last year to the Pistons, where he only played 6 games due to injury, he's back healthy now, and I think he gives the Mavs a little something that they probably didn't have on the roster, which is a true 3-and-D guy.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of always wanted Josh Green to be that, and he kind of became that, but not a volume enough three-point shooter to really be considered that. And maybe I'm just off, I don't know. I thought Green's defense the last year and a half kind of slipped a little bit. From what I watched, it seemed like the more he played, the less impactful he was defensively. But, that's neither here nor there. I'm not trying to drag Josh Green. But I think Grimes is a little bigger and stronger than Green. He is a more higher volume three-point shooter. Now, obviously, the Green percentages favor him. But
way less attempts.
Yeah, you see the volume there. And, I think you have to factor in, too, now Quentin Grimes is coming in playing in an offense that when Luka Doncic is on the court, like when he gets the ball, he's going to be open quite a bit on catch and shoot opportunities. Whereas even as good as Jalen Brunson's been, that's not really how the Knicks operate. Like they're kind of more of a Brunson ISO attack and stuff like that. Whereas, you're not generating open looks for role players consistently. So if he can get back to how he was 2 years ago, we've talked about this before, Coop, I think he can be a pretty damn good piece. We were looking at the roster the other day. I think he could be your 7th or 8th guy right now. I really do.
Yeah, I think that's the role he's going to end up playing, and we'll talk a little more about that in just a few, exactly where he fits into this team. But look, if he's going to play defense and if he's going to knock down the corner 3 at a consistent clip, he will find minutes with this roster. The Mavs have shown, like, if you can play and you have a couple discernible skills that will put you on the court, they'll find a way to get you out there. So I have full faith that Jason Kidd will find a way to maximize Quentin Grimes this season at least.
And he seems like a kid kind of guy. And Grimes talked about that. He was like, look, like playing for Tibbs, like you if you didn't defend, you weren't going to play. Yep. And like a kid's kind of like that too. I don't think he's as hardcore as a guy as Tom Thibodeau, but it's like if you play defense, you're going to get on the floor. Why do you think they continue to play Maxi Kleber? Because they value his defense. So, if you're the Mavericks, I think this is a great question. Like, if Quentin Grimes is at minimum equal to Josh Green, but if not better, like that's a pretty good thing because Green obviously at least became a rotation piece this past season. What do you guys think? Do you think Grimes is better, type B for better, W for worse? I think he's a better player. Maybe he wasn't last year, but he was banged up. But I think his track record shows that he has the ability to be a better player.
I also think he's a better player. We'll see what happens with Josh Green's role over in Charlotte. I bet he gets a few more attempts, maybe some more offensive opportunities, and we'll see what he does with those. But for what the Mavericks need right now, I think I would go with Quentin Grimes being a better player than Josh Green.
All right, guys, we want to challenge you. The next channel at Chat Sports that we're trying to catch up to here is the Michigan Football Report.
Also known as our boss's channel.
Yes, that is true. Let's take down the boss. 31,412 subs, so we're just over 2,000 away. And, guys, they're not posting content right now. So this is the time for us to close the gap. If you want us to take down our boss, hit that subscribe button. Got to get to 30,000 first, and then we'll keep moving on up the ranks right there. All right, what is Quentin Grimes' role on this team? I kind of alluded to it. I think, Coop, you're hoping it's Josh Green, but more steady and more reliable, and
exactly.
I think more versatile, too. I think Green, it kind of became clear over time, those bigger wings, he just could not guard.
Yeah.
He could defend 1s and 2s fairly well, but I think Grimes is a little thicker and a little longer that he can guard some of those small forwards in the NBA. So if he can do that, You got your starting five, obviously backup center, and Gafford, assuming Lively starts. Naji Marshall, I would say that's your top 7. And then I think Grimes has a chance to be that number 8 guy, whether it's him, Maxi Kleber, or if Jaden Hardy takes a step. It's going to be one of those 3. And I think if you're Quentin Grimes, like, hey, can I be the top or second wing off the bench after Naji Marshall? That should be the role he's shooting for.
Exactly. I think that's what he's shooting for. And I just came up with a little stat projection for what I think his stats could look like if everything goes according to plan. Average around 10.7 points per game, shoot 41% from three-point line and 47% from the field. I think these are very reasonable stats that he could amass this season, especially if he is shooting and he's healthy like he was in that 22-23 season with New York. I just believe that this guy is going to be able to provide a role that the Mavs didn't have in this last couple of years in that Josh Green role, essentially, where you're the 8th man. You're not the first wing off the bench, but you're still a guy who's going to play 23, 24 minutes a night, and you're going to guard the opposing team's best player when you're on the court.
Yeah, and I could see him getting into the mid-20s too, because I think he'll play a decent amount of 2-guard, and I could see Dallas try to manage Kyrie's minutes throughout the course of a season, give him the occasional night off as well. I mean, he's going to be, 32 next year, so you don't want Kyrie playing 36, 38 minutes a night, for 65 games. So, I do think they'll try to keep him in the low 30s, and QG can give you 20 to 25 minutes per game. So if he's shooting efficiently and defending 1 through 3s, fairly well, I think he's going to play. That's kind of what you brought him in for, to hopefully be an upgrade over Josh Green in a similar type of role in terms of how much he's playing.
And coming up next, we'll talk about a little contract extension talk. Should the Mavs extend him before the season starts, which is when he's eligible for a deal? But before we do that, we have to shout out our sponsor at Fanatics. They've been real ones with us all throughout the summer. You can get the draft hats that are still available on Fanatics right now by going to chatsports.com/Mavs draft hat. They have the flat bill, they have the curved, all different kinds of sizes and styles available. Just make sure you do it with our friends at Fanatics by going to chatsports.com/Mavs draft hat, and that will be in the comments and the description of today's show.
What's cool about the draft hats this year is they don't expire. It's not like once the draft, it's not like there's a big draft logo on it and you're like, I don't want to wear this anymore. These are hats you could wear all the time. So chatsports.com/Mavs draft. And we've talked about this in the office, Coop, about do you extend Quentin Grimes? And listen, we were critical of extending Josh Green, but in a way, I think that was probably the right move because even if we didn't think he was quite worth that money, that it was a very tradable contract. If you could do Grimes on a similar number, I wouldn't hate it. I'm kind of indifferent. If you want to extend him on a similar deal to Josh Green, cool. If you want to wait and see this play out, make sure he is back and healthy and see how he performs, I understand that line of thinking as well. I will say this, though. I think there is the theory of playing with Luka is going to help him. Sure. I think is very real. If he goes out there and shoots 43% from 3 and plays better than expected, then, all of a sudden he goes from a $12, $13 million player to, who knows? He could be a 4 for 75 guy. So if you can get him at that 4 for 52, 55 type range, it's probably a little rich on paper based on what he's done right now, but if you're expecting him to take a jump here, I couldn't really argue with it.
I think I'm more open to this extension than I was with Green, just simply seeing how it worked with Josh Green. He had somewhat of a disappointing season, but like you said, the contract was extremely tradable, and they ended up moving him to Charlotte in the Klay Thompson deal. Without Green's money on the books, does that deal even get done? Do the Mavs? Is it feasible that the Mavs even get Klay Thompson? So I do think there is certainly a benefit to signing him to an extension, but there's also a benefit to waiting it out and seeing. So it'll be interesting what Nico Harrison in the front office decide to do, but I'm certainly more open to this one than I think I was the Josh Green situation the same time a year ago.
If the Mavs are confident that Grimes is going to be at least what Josh Green was, and you can get him at a similar contract, then I would get it done. Agreed. Now, who knows? Is Grimes camp, do they want more? Who knows? But if they think he's at minimum that level player, then I'd probably just get a deal done because those type of contracts, $12, $15 million per year, they're so easy to move in today's NBA.
They get exchanged all the time.
They get traded all the time. I mean, Grant Williams sucked and they moved him after 2 months.
Yeah.
It's these guys get moved all the time. So even if you're not 100% sure he's a long-term guy here, like there's not a huge downside to a 3 for 40, 4 for 52, whatever type of contract you're looking at there in that range. What do you guys think? Should the Mavs extend Quentin Grimes, E for extend, W for wait? If he's healthy and the number's reasonable, I'd probably extend him because I don't think there's that much of a downside there. I mean, I guess if he's an absolute disaster, but I just don't think he's going to be a disaster. Like, he's not going to be amazing. He's not going to suck.
That's what he is.
Ideally, he's a really good role player, but at worst, he's an average role player. That's kind of how I see this going here. All right, appreciate everybody for tuning in to Mavericks today. Quick note on Summer League. They got blasted last night.
88 points. Not good. 7 points in the first quarter. Omax looked a little better, but it was not a good showing from the Mavericks.
Yeah, ugly showing. Hopefully they play better their next time out. We'll continue to keep tabs on that. By the way, the Mavs they can't figure Summer League out. They're
always been bad.
They're always a bad Summer League team. So
it is what it is.
It is what it is. He's Jeffrey Cooperstein. I'm Harrison Graham. See you guys soon.